Alpha Day, and welcome to another edition of the Innovate Guam podcast, the podcast where we look at all things innovation, technology, and improvement related to the island of Guam. My guest for today's podcast is what I like to term an academic entrepreneur. He is a true leader and innovator of Guam's workforce development training area. He has a doctorate in business administration, a master's in public administration, and a bachelor's degree in elementary uh, education. He's been a middle school teacher, a public utility manager with Guam Waterworks Authority. He's been an adjunct college instructor, and finally, he's the director of the GCA Trades Academy. As director of the GCA Trades Academy, he has kept one foot in industry and one foot in academia, ensuring he always had the pulse of industry's workforce development needs. Armed with this knowledge, he always moved quickly and creatively to deliver new training solutions for Guam's industries and workforce members. Simply put, he is known as a creative innovator in this space. Everything to no grades, no schedules, and no semesters. He changed the whole paradigm of how training and education is delivered in this arena. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mr. Bert Johnston. Bert, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you so very much.
How are you doing today?
Uh, as every day, you take your pulse, it's there, it's going to be a good day.
Outstanding. Welcome to the Innovate Guam podcast. And again, thank you for being our guest. Are you ready to get into it?
Sure. Thank you for the invitation.
All right. So, on the IG podcast, we have a tradition. We always start off with a series of questions aimed at gauging where your head is at in terms of innovation and technology. And the first question is, what is your definition of innovation, and what does innovation mean to you?
Well, innovation, a lot of times people think of it being something new, but it doesn't necessarily have to be new. Uh, my perspective of innovation is a couple of things. Number one, resourcefulness. It's not about resources, it's about what can you do with what you've got right now. Okay. And then my background in music has taught me to um, to improvise. And so you may not have a perfect environment, but it doesn't mean you can't do certain things. And if you have to wait for something to be perfect before you do something, nothing gets done.
Oh, I hear you with that one. I hear you with that one. All right, second question. What is your favorite piece of technology or your favorite innovation of the last 5 years?
Well, more than 5 years, digital music. Um, I used to
Ah,
carry
yeah,
a ton of music around with me all the time. Now on a simple phone or iPad, I've got my entire jukebox.
absolutely, absolutely. Last question. What is your most surprising innovation or piece of technology? In other words, what innovation or piece of technology, when it first came out, you thought, hey, that's kind of strange, or maybe you thought it was even stupid, but now it's something that you can't live without.
It's got to be the cellular phone. And the idea that you can actually carry a computer full of data, access to anywhere in the world on a simple handheld device. Um, that was the dreams of James Bond and Maxwell Smart. You know, granted, we're not talking into a phone I mean, into a foot. I mean, into a shoe, but it's something that it is within your handheld item, being able to access anything.
Absolutely. So outstanding. Let's get into the meat of our IG discussion. Here on the podcast, we're passionately focused on innovation, technology, and economic development. More specifically, we're interested in the island of Guam's innovation, technology, and economic development. So, with the coming technological explosion of the fourth industrial revolution, We want to explore what is needed for Guam to succeed in this era. And we want to look at it from three different facets. First facet we want to look at is workforce development. In other words, what is needed to prepare the workforce for the technology of the future. Second facet is technology development and deployment. That's where we get into what specific technologies are needed to solve what specific problems or to improve quality of life or efficiency. And then the third area is what government policies and initiatives do we need to enable all of this that we're talking about. So with your background as the director of the GCA Trades Academy, we're very interested in hearing from you about workforce development initiatives, but feel free to comment on any of the other two facets as well. So with the first question we have is, what specific workforce development programs and initiatives does the GCA Trades Academy have to prepare Guam's workforce for the technology explosion coming?
Well, we've got a variety of programs, but we did things that were a little different than anybody else on this island. Number one, we departed from a lot of the conventions of educational institutions. We do not have semesters. We run classes in cycles. And so the cycles go back and forth. We're also demand-based. If there's a demand for classes, we offer them. When the demand wanes, we slow it down and stop them until the demand picks up again. So we're able to scale up and scale down based upon the demand. We also don't have any grades. And I joke about the fact that I was trained really well in high school and in college to maintain that grade point average and how important that was to have that a high grade point average. But once I graduated, nobody asked me what my grade point average was.
Wow.
And I'm going, we're focusing on the wrong areas. I understand why they're looking at the grade point average. It's basically a determination of learning, but that's not where we should be focusing on. In fact, educational institutions are actually measuring the wrong things, we feel. And so, yeah, we see people measuring attendance and grades and all this other stuff, but our focus is on the educational experience. And to make the educational experience the best for that student so that the student's time in a classroom and they can use it all, they have all sorts of opportunities for their time. The best use of their time is to be in our class. If they're in our class, we don't have to worry about attendance because they're going to be there. We don't have to worry about them learning. They're going to learn if that's the best use of their time. We don't have to worry about them passing exams because it's the best use of their time. So we focus in on that educational experience to make sure that it's constructive, because if we do it right, they're going to repeat it. If we don't do it right, they're going to walk away. So
wow, that is an outstanding approach.
Again, taking a look at what's important to the students. And it's not just educational institutions, it's a lot of industries don't understand what their product is. Our product is the educational experience. And we want to make sure that if we're doing it right, there's a line for me to get in versus a line for me to get out of this organization.
That's absolutely awesome. How did you come to this idea, and what was the thing that possessed you to even try something this creative and out of the box? Because a lot of times in academia, they're not really known for going outside of the box. There's a traditional model and there's a traditional way that training and education is delivered, and you don't really go too far left or right outside of those limits.
Well, part of it is the training for education teachers is to focus on this concept called teaching. It's not about teaching. It's about whether the students learn. You could have the best lesson plan and you could execute it perfectly, but if that student hasn't learned anything, have you really done anything? And so bringing in a business perspective into an educational institution. My background is both in education and in business. And in business, you try to focus in on what are the things you need to be measuring. And too often we're measuring the wrong things. We're looking at people's hours at work as opposed to have they done their job. We're looking at payroll versus whether we've got a cost benefit analysis on this. So we've got all those factors, and I'm going, if we do it right, and we tell this to our students, if you are really good at what you do because of you've been trained in that area and you truly enjoy that, and your boss doesn't take care of you, somebody else will, because your work's going to speak for itself. And we've employed that into our organization, making sure that people understand the value of what we're giving people here, and watching lines form. I use this analogy of the food court. You go into a food court that you've never been to before, and you want to figure out where you're going to eat. Don't go to the one that has no line, because everybody knows that's not good food. Go for the one that's got the longest line, because it's been proven. And we try to do the same thing and apply it here.
So Bert, tell me some more about executing this novel approach. Kind of tell me about what you've learned, kind of maybe the problems or issues that you ran into trying to deliver training and education in this format, what you learned from it, how's it working now, the kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly of going this route.
Well, first of all, one of the problems that I see in people trying to go into an area that's unknown is they're afraid of failure. And so what we do is our approach has always been, we call everything a pilot, because a pilot gives us a license to fail. If it fails, we're just piloting it and we're testing this out. How do you know that something's going to work until you try it? How do you know this not going to work until you try it? So we keep trying things and seeing if they work. If they work, we'll repeat it. If it doesn't work, we'll try something different. But that's an approach that we need to incorporate into the educational system, trying different things. Also understanding that teachers are skilled professionals, so they should be treated that way. Every time you take away some degree of discretion from a teacher, you're taking away some of their professionalism. If you keep doing that to a professional and taking away discretion, you are going to lose your teachers. And so we give a lot of latitude, a lot of discretion to our instructors. We give them parameters and say, okay, stay within these parameters and become an effective teacher and focus in on that. That is critical for us.
That's outstanding. Have you found that having no grades um, has been a motivator or something that you have to manage with your students? How does that work?
Well, one of the things that we did here that was different from a lot of the organizations that are tuition based, if you take a class from us and you pay for that class and you don't pass the class for whatever reason, maybe it could have been a transportation issue. You couldn't come to class because your vehicle broke down, or maybe because your work schedule changed and you had to miss classes because you had to work overtime, or maybe you got sick and you weren't able to make it to class, or even worse, there's a death in the family. We're saying if those occur, take care of that priority first. When it's over, come back and pick up your classes where your other former classmates are at and continue that education. And those areas that you've missed, when we cycle back around again, you take those classes. And if you don't pass a class for whatever reason in our program, you take that class at no additional cost. It forces us to focus on making sure that learning has occurred versus taking people's money.
Wow, that is very much a different kind of approach. You basically take the class over until you pass it. Do you find that your students really appreciate this approach to learning?
They haven't said that, but we have, and not many people have to retake it. But when they do, and it's basically an experience that I had before. If you look at my transcripts of college, I didn't pass all my classes the first time, but I wanted to graduate, so I had to take them again and had to pay a second time. And that bitter taste in my mouth from having to pay for a same class twice, I had an opportunity here to say, wait a second, we're not doing that type of mistake.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wow, that's great. That's great. So, can you tell me about how much does it cost for somebody to attend the Trades Academy, and what does your registration and um, maybe financial aid or anything like that associated with it? Can you tell me about those things?
Well, we priced our classes roughly about 5 hours a week. First, that's how we're scheduling them, and it roughly costs about $80 for that 5 hours of instruction a week. But the entire program costs less than $15,000 for a 4-year program.
How about financial aid and for those who can't afford even that very reasonable price.
Well, there are some programs out there. Every once in a while, somebody will come to us and donate some cash to us. And the first thing we ask is, can we use it for scholarships? And we use it to fund people that are falling between the cracks of other programs. Maybe they can't afford the classes. Maybe they can't afford some of the other programs out there that are such as the apprenticeship program. Maybe they're not interested in that. So we use that. In fact, Contractor Association this month is giving out $15,000, $16,000 worth of scholarships for us.
That's outstanding, Bert. That is absolutely outstanding. All right, next question. You talked about pilot and experimentation in terms of rolling out different classes. What kind of classes do you see you need to roll out in terms of like maybe focusing on new areas like maybe AI or 3D printing or IoT or robotics or data science or the list goes on and on. Do you have anything right now that's on your radar scope that you want to start experimenting with?
Well, we're already doing that. We scheduled starting April 22nd. We're going to have our first diesel mechanic program. And again, this is a pilot. This has been 2 years in the making of putting it together. The class is already full before we started. But if you want to know what else is out on the horizon, that list is endless. I don't think we have enough time for that. You were asking whether I had a stop date here as far as time. You can be here till Saturday talking about all the things that we could be doing. And so we have to actually pick and choose. And we strategically pick and choose what we want to get into. And we look at things that, how big of a demand it is, what are the chances of success, whether we have the resources for that, whether we have the capacity for that. And all of those are taken into consideration before we develop new programs. But some of the stuff that we're looking at right now is fiber optics. The curriculum that we use is developing a program in fiber optics. It was supposed to be released last year, but it hasn't come out yet. So it's still under development. I'm looking for curricula on water technology so that we can train operators not only to pass a written test, but also a physical test and be knowledgeable about making decisions on the water system. I came from waterworks and the training in that area, the training resources was limited. Other things that we've looked at, we've been approached by helping an aeronautics program out here, pilot training, flight attendant training, RAM personnel. And I'm going, we can't do that type of stuff. That's way out of our scope. But what we can do is show you our business model, and we'll show you how to start a program like that.
Outstanding, outstanding. Can you talk a little bit more about the diesel mechanic program? Because I have a little bit of background knowledge on it, and I think it was pretty innovative the way that you all responded to that and how you got that off and running. So can you tell the audience a little bit about the background associated with that course and how you all executed on that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we use primarily the NCCR curricula. And NCCR does not have a program of diesel mechanic. They have heavy equipment operators classes, and they also have power generation, which is very close to the diesel program. But they don't have anything specific for diesel engines, specifically vehicles. And so we sat together with a couple of instructors and figured out we had a textbook that we selected earlier, and they decided that wasn't appropriate, that we needed a different textbook. So we got a different textbook, and we put the program together to start around October last year. Then we got wind that the textbook that we had selected, a new edition was going to come out in November. And so we waited for that. And so the new edition is out. Our books are in already. They just arrived this last couple of days, so we have the books. We sat down with the instructors. We're sitting down with potential employers, and we're basically filling the first class of 15 people with apprentices, and then creating a waiting list of people that want to come in. But we're fortunate that we've got two very experienced mechanics that are now certified to teach classes, taking on this challenge. The other challenge is being able to keep that instructor on island. Both of them have travel plans. And so we're going to be doing something a little bit different in that these guys will team teach a class, which is new to us. And we'll see how well that works. And they communicate with each other very well. And if one can't make it to class, another the other one will be in class and we'll run those classes. One of the things about our program here is we have no substitute teachers. If a class instructor can't make it for a class, he notifies their students, we don't have class that night, and we extend the class at the end of the course day, so that they still get the coverage on that. And so we're in constant communication between our instructors and our students, because they're all, for the most part, working. And sometimes things happen, life happens, and we're not able to have a class. And so we'll just skip that class and pick it up at the very end of the program.
Outstanding. So, can you tell me about any work that you're doing with industry or any relationships that you're forging with industry to help better understand what their workforce development needs are? And tell me a little bit about what you're hearing from industry on, here's what Guam needs in terms of workforce development.
Well, one of the things that we regularly do, and we haven't done one for a while, is have what we call an advisory board, where we invite individuals to come in, and we basically do three things. Number one, tell them what we've done. Number two, tell them what we're doing. And number three, tell them what we're planning to do. And it's basically to make sure that what we're doing is aligned with the community. Case in point, our first meeting was back in 2007, advisory board meeting, and the publisher of the Guam Pacific Daily News was there, and she says, you know what? Rendrati was saying, you need exposure. So she offered us 6 issues of trades and insert in the Pacific Daily News once a month. And it would come out on the 3rd Wednesday of the month. And if it worked out, she would continue that. Our first issue was in March of 2008. We are now over 200 issues. We've only missed 1 month, and that was because Mawar. And even though they've gone digital, our on the 3rd Wednesday of the month, we have a digital issue of trades, and we show some success stories and encouraging people to try to consider going into the trades. And people discuss this idea, well, you can either go into the trades or you can go to college. I say, no, it's not binary. You can do both. You can go to college.
Talk a little bit about.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Bert, because you hit on something that's really near and dear to my heart. You know, people have different perception about trades versus college, and it seems like in this day and age, those perceptions are starting to change. So, talk a little bit about that whole trades or college kind of approach, and what you were getting ready to say about why not both?
Yeah, well, here's the problem. You're saying the perceptions are starting to change. The reality has never changed. It's always been, you can do both. It's just that we believed, well, I can go this direction, I can become an apprentice and I can be a skilled craftsman, or I can go to college and become an engineer. Well, imagine taking trades classes first before you become an engineer, and you design upon what the workforce needs.
That's a much better way to develop engineers. Yeah. That's a much better way of developing engineers. Yes.
Yeah, because you give them a practical experience.
Yes.
And this is what's missing a lot in our educational institutions, that practical experience.
Yes, yes, yes.
You know, and we see people offering classes for employability skills. I never took a class on employability skills. Where did I learn my class? Where did I learn my employability skills? By working on a minimum wage job. That's where it started. Okay. And we're taking people away from that. First of all, we raise the minimum wage so that's not affordable for employers to keep people that are completely lost and provide direct supervision. And you don't give them that opportunity. And so they have to get a certain skill level, a certain age level before they can work. My first job, I was only 12 years old. You know, I worked at GMH when I was 15. And these were, you know, sub minimum wage rates, but you know, summer training programs. That's where I learned it. Okay, nobody sat down and taught me, you know, it's kind of important to be here on time. It's kind of important to do these things when told. It's kind of important to follow directions. It's kind of important to be able to work with people, other people that you don't like. All of those you learn by doing those type of things. And yes, we made some mistakes, but those mistakes were lessons.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Well, sorry, I didn't want to cut off your train of thought. You were talking about kind of what you were doing with industry relationships, those kind of work. You talked about the PDN aspect and all of that. Any other things that you want to talk
Yeah,
about? And the board,
uh,
yeah.
that was the advisory board. And so with the advisory board, it's a conversation with people in the community. And they're giving us feedback about what they think works, what we should be doing. And we try to do that on a regular recurring basis. It includes people like the Admiral has joined us. We've had people from the community join us. We've had,
Mm.
people from other educational institutions come join us and have this conversation about what are we doing and whether we're in the right track. Because it makes no sense to be running something and not realizing and assuming that you're making a difference and you're not. We want to make a difference.
Absolutely, absolutely. So glad to hear that. Next question. What government policies or initiatives would help you at the Trades Academy to better prepare Guam's workforce for the 21st century? Again, it might not be something directly like a grant or anything like that,
Yeah.
but just anything in general to that the Trades Academy would be benefit from in terms of government policies and initiatives.
Well, you've talked about grants and those things. This is what I have found. It's not the money. The reason people are not involved in this stuff is not because of the money. It's other factors. We started the Trades Academy with the erroneous assumption that we were doing it for apprenticeship programs. We didn't get our first apprentice for 10 years. And if we were running for an
Wow.
apprenticeship program, we would never have gotten off the ground. So the first thing, when we first realized we're not getting apprentices, we got to do something. And so we started doing craft training programs, just running a bunch of classes. And we had no idea what type of classes were in demand until we offered them. But it's not the money that's important right now. Okay. What's important is attracting people into this program. And even contractors, trying to talk to contractors about you should be training your employees, because we get contractors coming to us and saying, hey, you want to hire your graduates. I said, if you want to hire our graduates, it's too late. You can't, they already realize that they can't go down to Home Depot and buy skilled workers off the shelf. They're not in stock. And so they go, so what is the solution? And I said, well, train your employees. They go, well, what if you train them and they leave? I said, some of them are going to leave.
Yes.
Okay, you can't keep them there, and you shouldn't keep them there. If they don't want to work for you, you shouldn't keep them around because they're going to cause trouble. And I said, the worst case is to not train them and they stay. You can't be competitive in that area. And so they look at me and they ask, so what's the solution? Train your employees so they can leave, but treat them so they don't want to. You get
Yes.
the best of both worlds. And that's not original. That came from Richard Branson.
Yes. Yes. I do see that as a big opportunity area for Guam companies. Uh, the internal corporate training programs, if you will, on Guam. A lot of times it seems like many of the companies believe, hey, we're too overwhelmed. We're working too hard. We have too few resources in order to expend it with this training stuff. I've got operations that I need to do. So I don't have time for training. And I feel like that's a short-sighted way to look at your business. You've got to have a steady training and development program. And I love your approach or thoughts on it, because people like you with the Trades Academy can come in and partner with those companies to help them do their internal training program to make it something that's meaningful and beneficial to them.
But one of the problems, and it's not necessarily a problem, but one of the issues that contractors are having to deal with is training is not one of their core competencies. Okay.
Yeah.
And in management, manager's job is to get things done. And if it's not something that you're comfortable with, or it's not your core competency, you source it. Find somebody that will
Right.
do it for you. Okay. And here we're offering that. We can help train individuals at a nominal cost to make a difference. You also have to train not only your technical workers, but your management staff. If you manage somebody as if
Exactly.
they're unskilled and they're skilled, you will lose them. And so that's
I want to say hallelujah, brother, because you are preaching the word today.
but so you're looking at, so what's it going to take, like, for the construction industry? What's it going to take for contractors to want to train their workers? And they spend a whole lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of resources on safety issues, because there's safety
Yes,
awards out there, and those awards can earn them points toward getting contracts.
yes,
And so my suggestion has been out there, why don't we do the same thing for training awards for businesses that train their employees, and give them awards for that. And when you put something out for bid, give them preference points for having a training award. And all of a sudden, contractors are going to be focusing, because they focus on the specifications of the bids and their contracts. They do
yes,
no more, no less. So let's put it into the specs that you train your
yes,
employees. And it's not, don't put a nominal 10% or 15% of your workforce has to be trained. No, because you're going to do that for the duration of the contract, and when it's over, you're going to stop doing it. But what you want to do is
yes.
systemically put it into the organization to train your people so that you can get bids, and so that you can not survive, but you can compete.
Yes, I really, really agree with you, strongly agree with you on all of that. Feel like company really has to take time to deliberately invest in training and development of the workforce, safety, quality, and process improvement. All of those things are difference makers, and it builds a culture in an organization that makes that organization, high performing, high class kind of entity. And that's the difference maker. Those who have deliberate plans to invest in those things so that they get a return on that investment.
And even the best plans are going to go south. Okay.
Yes,
What you need is resourcefulness. When things aren't going right, what can you do? What you've got. And yes, you may be overwhelmed with the work. You may not have enough employees. You may not have this, and this. But unless you do something about it to correct for that, your job is not to fight fires. Management's job is to prevent the fires from happening to begin with.
exactly. And that's why you have to invest in these kind of deliberate training and development programs, these deliberate quality and safety programs, these deliberate process improvement programs, because that's your job as management. You're not going to get any other new people. You're not going to be able to invest in some kind of silver bullet piece of technology or equipment, or more people or more equipment. You've got to figure out how to get the most out of what you've got right now. And if you don't have a plan to do that, then you're going to constantly just be spinning your wheels. And it's not going to be good for you as the manager, and it's certainly not going to be good for your employees. Those are the things that run people off.
Yeah. And again,
Yeah,
when you evaluate an organization, where's the line forming? Like a food court, is it forming to get in, or is it forming to get out? If the line is forming for people to leave you, you've got some serious issues.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, that's all great information. And you've been full of some awesome insights. And I tell you, I'm just so impressed with all of the innovative approaches that the Trades Academy is doing in terms of trying to develop Guam's workforce for the future. So I salute you. Hats off. Thank you so much for what you're doing over there at the Trades Academy. You all are really making a difference over there. So thank you, Bert, for being a guest on the Innovate Guam podcast and sharing all of this great information with us.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. But the bottom line is, this is not rocket science. Anybody can learn it.
I agree with you. For my audience, I hope you learned something today. Watch for my podcast dropping weekly at the beginning of the week. Follow me on all social media platforms, and please read my Innovate column at the guampdn.com first and third Fridays of each month. Um, Until then, see you next time. And remember, no matter whether you're at work, at home, or at play, always innovate. Thank you.